after 9 films, a couple of spin-offs, 40 years of advertising and memes, what does it mean? I mean, look, when the first Star Wars film came out in 1977, I knew what it meant as a 14-year-old in the United States, or rather, I was told what it meant. Because Star Wars was America. It was America in crisis, coming out of Watergate and Vietnam and corruption and inflation. But it was America, innocent, naive America that could somehow win. We were Luke. We faced the evil empire, the Death Star, the Soviet Union. Not too subtle there. We were fighting for the good of all mankind across galaxies, and maybe even womankind once Leia was introduced to this. And after all the travails we were facing, we would win. Now, we didn't necessarily know we would win in 77, but by the time Ronald Reagan popped up 5 years later and called his nuclear weapons system Star Wars, the umbrella that would protect us from the Soviets, even as we possibly wipe them off the face of the earth, we could be reassured that Luke and Han and Chewie and Leia, they were us. It was a comfort zone every time that we saw Luke being guided by the spirit of Obi-Wan go in and blow up the enemy. Because it was the Cold War. And quite frankly, we had that paradox that even though we didn't want the doomsday clock ever to strike midnight, if it did, we win. But that was more than 30 years ago. What does Star Wars mean now? You know, so much has been dislocated in not only American politics, but global politics. Whether you talk about the craziness of political systems that have gone beyond corruption to just simply be chaotic, depending on who the guy in the White House or the guy in the Kremlin is, to talk about climate change, to talk about continued issues regarding the economies of the world and fairness and justice. And Star Wars is kind of drifted. I mean, it's like dislocated from that idea of the Cold War. How does Star Wars recover all of those key issues? And how does it deal with the craziness to make sense out of all of it? Well, quite honestly, it doesn't. And that's where we need a shift. Look, Star Wars can't be a political tale about Americans or Brits or French or Russians, definitely not the Russians. It can't be some type of guiding parable for our world. At the end of the day, at least for me, Star Wars has to become a personal story. Go all the way back to the beginning. Obi-Wan's dead. Obi-Wan's dead, and what are you going to do? What is that force? And that force, which you have to hold on to when you're not sure if your friends will stand by you, when you're not sure who your father is, when your parents are dead, that force has to guide you through the most difficult of times. Believe in that force at a personal level. Believe in what is right and what is decent and what is just. Push away the notion of the Death Star. Stick for what is right in terms of what is living each and every day. And maybe Obi-Wan, or the spirit of Obi-Wan, lives in all of us. Join Richard Langley and me as we have a podcast to consider politically, socially, in terms of our daily lives, what the Force means.